Welcome back to Brashenomics. You know, if you buy the wrong house and you're stuck in it, you can sometimes feel like you're in a Turkish prison. And then all of a sudden, it's very, very difficult to get out without the keys to maybe sell that house. And sometimes you don't know what those keys to success will be. And maybe you don't have, what may seem like a big enough key or a small enough key to escape what can sometimes make you feel like your own home is a financial prison. Now, David Bell joins us, again, our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer with 22 years in the real estate business. David, how are you, sir?
I'm really well, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. In your experience, you must have seen a lot of people purchase homes, especially in this type of market, that maybe have become financial stretches for them as houses get bid up or whatnot, and puts them in a little bit of a predicament as their mortgage payments come due each month. And, it could be, like I said, a little bit of a prison sometimes, and that house poor feeling.
And what you said to begin with is really right as well. Buying the right home at the right price is really something that people should really set up and plan from the very beginning before they even go out and look at houses. People get an idea that, I want to buy a 3-bedroom house and I want a garage and I want a big backyard where the kids and I can play catch or play football. They don't have kids yet. And they get an idea that this is what they want and they can afford $300,000, and they go out and then look at a $300,000 house and it doesn't have anything to do with what it is that they want.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to really be realistic, and you probably need to work with somebody, a real estate agent typically, that is very realistic and help you understand what your goals are and to help you understand what it is that you can really get for that price that you really want to spend. And you also need to look at it not from this is my final decision, but this is a journey. People are young, they get married, they have children, their life moves on, and that's kind of how homes are as well. You start out, if you make a good investment to begin with, then you can turn that house in 5, 6, 7, 8 years to the next house, and then maybe the final house. So it's kind of a journey.
So the reason I bring this up is because a lot of people's home buying journeys have, accelerated in price over the past, say, 6 months or a year. As the amount of inventory declines, people start to come back to us from the mortgage standpoint and say, well, I know my max was $500,000, but the only houses I can find are now $600,000. And it puts everybody in a predicament, right? Because now everybody's trying to stretch the envelope on what they can afford. And how do you help people stay one time you told me that you try to keep people's 1 foot in reality and 1 foot in their dreams. This is part of that journey where people are starting to go, I have 1.5 feet in my dreams. And I'm afraid that if I don't get both feet into dreams, I'm not going to get a house at all.
Well, that goes back to what their expectations are and what they can buy. So they think, gee, for $500,000, I should be able to buy my dream home. I've had people come to me. I had a guy that came to me recently that could afford $150,000, and he wanted his dream home for that.
Kansas, baby.
Well, Kansas or Mississippi or someplace like that. You were talking about a prison in Turkey. That might work for him.
Yeah.
So it's setting up the right expectations, and the sooner you do that, the better off you are. Because if people have really crazy expectations that they can buy a $500,000 house for $200,000, hey, they can't do it. Not in Seattle, not in Bellevue, not in this marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
If they want indoor plumbing, they want electricity, they want all the neat things that go along with that. So to set that up initially is really important. And what you said earlier, people go online, they start searching, and they start saying, okay, they read the newspaper and they say, oh, the median house price is $225, so I ought to be able to buy the median house. Well, the median house price of $225 or $250, whatever it is today in King County, that's not the median price in the city. That's not the median price in the Bellevue area. That's the median price as far out on the county as you can possibly get. So it's really setting up real expectations, realistic expectations and having one foot firmly planted in reality.
So what we're starting to see is people go from, call it 400 to 500,000 or 500 to 600. And in there, it's just 100,000.
Yeah, it's just 100,000.
But it's interesting how people start to perceive 100,000 because sometimes the house isn't that much different, right? It might be in a slightly better neighborhood. It might have a little bit more square footage, might have a little bit of bigger backyard, but somehow conceptually the finances it's just, can I just stretch to another $100,000? And that's a really interesting, I suppose, a vision or understanding that people have on what their money can do in terms of a house.
Yeah, but it's also human nature. I mean, it's not just now in the market because because inventories are low and the general theme. I mean, I talk to people every day that aren't buying a house and they think, oh gosh, the real estate market is really hot. Things are really going crazy, aren't they? Da 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 da. But that was the same thing that happened back in when I started in this business 23 years ago. People would go out and say, well, gee, I can afford $500,000, but I only want to spend $300,000, and they end up spending $550,000. It happens almost every time. People will actually move up to the top of their price range unless they're really, really disciplined and
beyond the top of their price range.
And beyond the top of their price range sometimes. You bring up a good point about what's happening in the market right now, and the overall trend in the market nationally is the market is up. December, nationally, home sales were down about 7% over November. I read an article this morning before I came in here about Trulia does an analysis of the market, and they say that right now we are 52% as strong as we were prior to 2008. And what they take into account new construction, and new construction starts are up, and they're up huge throughout the country. They take in, from the National Association of Realtors, new sales, existing home sales, and those are up. And they take in delinquencies and foreclosures, and across the board, those are down. So the market right now is as strong as it's been prior to 2008. And what I talked about in the last show I was in was that, everything is, they're very low inventory. There are buyers out there, but there's still so few buyers compared to what it was prior to the bubble. It's a huge difference. Is that in Seattle also, or is that national? Because it seems like with Amazon's hirings, with Google is now expanding again in Kirkland. It seems like there's probably a lot of higher end buyers that are in the greater Seattle area. The numbers I have for the Seattle market and the number of homes being sold, so that's how I look at. You don't know how many buyers are out there that aren't buying. I only know how many are sold. I only look at Seattle for that. The Seattle market for that. So in the Seattle market, I think I don't remember the numbers exactly, but 2012 was up 15% from 2011 in total number of houses sold, but that was still down 30% from what it was in 2007.
Sure, but we have half the inventory we had last year, and even less.
But we have about the same amount of inventory we had back in 2006 and 2007. That's not up that much. So it's just fewer buyers, fewer buyers and lower inventories. I shouldn't have said our inventories were the same. Our inventories were the same from a percentage standpoint, so from an absorption rate standpoint. So the number of buyers that were out there, the percentages are about the same today. So it really hasn't changed a whole lot.
And that's when we saw house prices going up at 10 and 15 and 20%.
Right. And there are predictions that we're going to see house prices doing that again. And something that you mentioned earlier in your monologue is that so many people want a deal. Well, we all want a deal. So they sit and they wait and wait and wait to the bottom of the market. The thing is, you never know that you're at the bottom of the market until you're well past it.
February 15th last year.
Yeah. Well, we're well past the bottom of the market unless we have a national recession again, and then who knows what happens to home prices, but I don't think I hope that doesn't happen. But we're well past the bottom.
It's nice of you, David.
Well, what can we need to do things to alleviate that.
No, it's just nice of you to hope that there's not another national recession.
Well, I do hope that, yeah.
So I'm really, really so glad that your positivity is coming out.
Yeah, so...
So what do people, you talked about people going through the process and this being a journey, and there's not a lot of houses on the market. I mean, last look, I think it was 1.2 months of inventory in Seattle proper. And if you're talking about the potential for house prices going up 10, 15, 20% over the next year, as some people have said, what are people supposed to do? I mean, you start getting priced out of the market. It starts to be that same conversation I think people were having with themselves in 2006, 2007. If you don't buy now, you get priced out of the house you want.
Well, but the difference today, Ben, and you're in this business. The difference today is that lenders are just not giving money away. I mean, you actually have to qualify today.
Mm-hmm.
You actually have to do more than just fog a mirror to get a loan. So that's going to keep a lot of that in check. People aren't just going to be able to walk up and get a loan for any amount, no stated income, no docs, no nothing. I want to buy $1 million house. Okay, here, sign here, and we'll close in a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening. So that's going to have that's going to keep the brakes on.
It'll be really then a function of what is happening with maybe median incomes around the city. I mean, and I see median incomes going up. I don't have the numbers, but I'm sure we can find them. Simply because, Google doesn't have low-paying jobs. Amazon is not low-paying jobs, and those seem to be some of the companies that are hiring 110 people a week at Amazon right now.
Yeah, and we have a huge biotech business in the greater Seattle area.
Not inexpensive.
Not inexpensive either. Yeah.
Bunch of rich people running around here.
And up until, I'm not one of them. Up until recently,
we're in the wrong business. I should have been a coder or a programmer.
Yeah, could have been but up until recently, up until the last 6-7 months, those high-paying jobs aren't buying houses. Yeah. So they're sitting around waiting to see what's going to happen to the real estate market. I think a lot of it goes back to consumer confidence. Mm-hmm. How confident are we in the economy? How confident are we in the market? People that are moving here from out of state, how confident are they am I going to want to live in this rain for the rest of my life? And so they're cautious.
Yeah. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to break. Stick around to the end of the show. We'd love to get some more comments. A lot of first-time home buyers may be out there wondering what this market specifically means for them. When we come back, we're going to discuss the first-time home buyers segment of the market that may be slipping out of reach. We'll be right back.